one of the most beautiful things that we receive when we meet Jesus, when we come into a relationship with God, is the freedom that we have to worship Him. You know, religion binds us, religion tells us rules and regulations, relationship gives us freedom. And it is for freedom that Christ has set us free, not to put us back into bondages. It's not to put you back into rules and regulations. No matter what you may have lived in the past, the moment you come into a relationship with Jesus, He gives you freedom to live life in Him. So what we see here is when we read about that woman we've been speaking of in the Gospel of Mark chapter 14. Today we will turn to Luke chapter 7. We see when this woman comes to Jesus, it says in 7 verse 38, it says, and she stood at His feet behind Him, weeping, and wiped them with the hair of her head. And she kissed His feet and anointed them with fragrant oil. At the same time, now in Luke, she's in the house of Simon the Pharisee, it says. Now, Pharisees were religious, fanatic people. They were people who would follow the law to the dot. They would want to prove how good they are according to religion. Now, when Simon the Pharisee invited Jesus into his house, he did none of it. He did not wash. He did not worship Jesus, but this woman worshipped, and the way she worshipped seemed absurd to Simon. It seemed wrong to the people around the world, around her at that moment. It seemed to make no sense to them. But for her, the moment she moved into the presence of Jesus, she just was moved by love. She was moved by His grace. She was moved by forgiveness. And what she did, when you read the Message version, it says she took very expensive perfume, stood at His feet weeping, and then it says raining tears on His feet, letting down her hair. She dried His feet and kissed them, anointed them with perfume. That's what she did. In His presence, she was moved to worship. When you are connected with Jesus, you have the freedom to worship Him the way you are moved, with the love that you have for Him. We are no more bound by rules and regulations. We are no more bound by you need to stand at this time, sit at this time, kneel at this time. You need to get up at 3 in the morning. You need to pray at 12 in the afternoon. You need to pray at 7. These are rules and laws made by man. When you come into a relationship with Jesus, you move into freedom to worship Him. You move into freedom to love Him. You know, when you love somebody, you don't love them by time. You love them from your heart. You don't tell them, okay, I'm going to be talking to you for 15 minutes. It's going to be from 3 to 3:30 or 3 to 3:45. No, we don't love people by time. We don't love people by rules and regulations. We love them from our heart. And that's what, when we move into the presence of Jesus, we have the freedom to worship Him. We have the freedom to build a relationship with Him. Today I want to ask you, are you living in freedom? Are you living in freedom? Or has religion caught up to you? Has religion pressed you down? Because religion will give you only a set of rules and laws. And we go to God in love. We go to God to love Him for who He is. We go to God to worship Him for who He is. This woman did not care what the people around were saying. She did not look at what they were talking. She did not bother what kind of background that house was in. She just was in the presence of Jesus and worshipped Him. She poured out the best to Him. That's what our walk with God will lead us to. Our relationship with God will lead us to worship Him in freedom. To worship Him in freedom.